Epictetus on what truly belongs to you. Hey guys, tonight we return to a simpler place. You step quietly into a small stone room where the walls hold no frescoes, no golden trim, no echoes of grand banquets or crowded speeches. Just silence. And in that silence, something remarkable happens. You begin to hear yourself. A flickering oil lamp paints soft amber across the uneven stone, its scent warm and faintly sweet, like old olive oil soaked into the air itself. You're lying on a worn mat tucked in one corner. There's no pillow, but the stillness around you is cushion enough. The night air flows lightly through a small high window. You breathe, slowly, deeply. This is not your home, not exactly. It's a kind of threshold. The place belongs to someone else, someone whose life was stripped of luxury long before philosophy found him. The philosopher Epictetus, born into slavery, later freed, but never fooled by freedom's costume. His real liberation came not with his manumission, but with a quiet realization. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. You might not endure what he did. Many wouldn't. He once walked the world with a limp, the result of an injury scholars still argue about. Some say his master twisted his leg until it snapped. Others say it was an accident. Epictetus never clarified, perhaps because it didn't matter. Pain, he taught, is not yours unless you claim it. Only your reaction belongs to you. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you'd like, post your location and what time it is where you are. It's always calming to see where in the world we're falling asleep together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Outside the doorway, there is no one. No bustling city, sounds, no orders barked from marble balconies. Just the moon above the courtyard, tracing the tiles with gentle silver. You sit up slowly, bones creaking in soft harmony with the floor. A small wooden stool sits beside the door. Upon it, a scroll, a cup, and a cane. You are not here to live someone else's day. You are here to understand how a man who had nothing and lost even that could still claim complete inner peace. Because when everything is taken from you, what remains is what truly belongs. You reach for the cup. It's not gold or polished. Just clay, rough in the palm, uneven at the lip. There's a chip near the base. You tilt it slightly, and the leftover water inside sloshes with a low hush. This cup, Epictetus once told his students, was never truly his. Not really. If it broke, he said he would not cry over it. When you kiss your child, say to yourself, you are mortal. When you drink from a cup, know that it is breakable. It's not about pessimism. It's about preparing gently for life's impermanence. You cradle the cup and look around. The room's other items are few: a woolen cloak, folded neatly, a cane worn smooth by decades of walking, and a scroll, a copy of the Discourses perhaps, or some letters from friends. These aren't possessions in the usual sense. They're tools, companions. If taken, he would not scream. Not because he didn't care, but because he had trained himself to care only for what could never be stolen. If you want something good, Epictetus once said, get it from yourself. There's power in that. A kind of quiet, defiant freedom. You sit with it for a while. The air is still. The candle trembles just slightly, perhaps in agreement. Outside, the streets of Nicopolis remain quiet. No wagons rattle by. No shouting vendors. Only the rustle of fig leaves in the breeze. You step outside for a moment. The stone is cool beneath your feet. You are reminded not unkindly that the world does not revolve around your comfort, and you begin to feel it, the release. That soft letting go of anything you thought you needed. The chipped cup, the soft cloak. even the thoughts that circle your mind like restless birds. None of it is you. None of it is truly yours. What is yours? That small decision to breathe fully and without hurry. That moment of choosing calm over complaint. That cup of presence full to the brim and easy to drink. You return inside the clay cup, still warm in your hands. Sitting again on the low mat, you place the cup beside you and take in the small details, the faint scent of olive oil, the way dust catches light in the corners, the slight creak of the old wood beam overhead. Nothing here distracts. Nothing is meant to impress. In fact, Epictetus might say that too much comfort dulls the mind. Luxury is not about what you have, he taught, but about what has you. He kept his habits simple. His daily rituals were acts of devotion, not to the gods of Olympus, but to clarity, self-governance, and inner peace. Each evening, he'd ask himself not what the world had given or taken away, but how he had responded. What did I do today? What did I avoid? What was left undone? These were his reflections, not of guilt, but of quiet correction. You lean back slightly, breathing in the weight of that thought. What did you do today? Not in grand gestures or titles earned, but in tiny invisible movements of character. Did you hold your tongue when provoked? Did you choose presence over panic? Did you carry the weight of something that was never truly yours to begin with? Outside, a breeze moves the curtain, barely a scrap of linen hung in the doorway. It flutters like a slow heartbeat, keeping rhythm with your breath. You close your eyes. There's nothing to prove here, only something to remember. Scholars still wonder how Epictetus taught so many owning so little. His lectures, preserved by his student Arian, were not elaborate but sharp, precise, rooted not in abstraction but in the real dust and ache of life. He didn't quote the stars. He spoke of broken legs, rude neighbors, spoiled grain, and bad weather. Because that's where philosophy lives. And as you sit there, not as a student in a lecture hall, but as a person simply breathing in stillness, you feel the truth of that approach. Philosophy isn't in the scroll. It's in your next. You shift your weight slightly, the mat giving just a little under you. The candle beside you sputters faintly, its flame dancing but never faltering. Across the room, Epictetus moves slowly. There is no hurry in him. Each motion rising from bed, straightening his tunic, setting his walking stick, just so is deliberate, thoughtful. He would say, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. You watch the way he lives that sentence, not in lectures, but in movement. His leg twisted from long ago, never healed properly. Historians still debate the details. Was it broken by a cruel master before his freedom? Or was it the slow result of untreated injury? No one can say for certain. But what they agree on is this: he never complained. Not once. To Epictetus, pain was not a punishment nor a test. It was simply reality. And reality, he insisted, is always neutral. It's not things themselves that disturb us, he taught, but our judgments about them. You glance at the walking stick worn from years of use. It is not a symbol of weakness. It is a symbol of adaptation. A Stoic staff. You imagine him walking through the porticos of Nicopolis with it navigating uneven ground, with steady rhythm, unbothered by those who looked on with pity. He might have even smiled. There's something freeing in that, the realization that you can suffer without becoming a sufferer. That hardship can exist without dominating your identity. The room is quiet again, save for the low hiss of the flame. You lie back for a moment and let your thoughts settle. That walking stick, that uneven gait, that early morning ritual, it all adds up to a man who accepted life as it came. Not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough not to resist it. That's what Epictetus believed truly belonged to you: your will, your reasoned choice, your ability to respond with grace when everything else feels beyond control. And in this quiet, you begin to believe it too. The morning deepens, yet time seems to stretch, not rush. You sit up again, breathing evenly. There is no agenda ahead, only observation, reflection, and a gentle discipline. Epictetus would have called this prohairesis, your faculty of choice, the inner citadel no one can breach. He often told his students, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus can overpower my will." You let that settle in. It's a radical claim, not of defiance, but of quiet autonomy. To the Stoics, what truly belonged to you was not your wealth, your body, your title, or your fate. It was your response, your attitude, the lens through which you met the world. Everything else they taught was borrowed on loan from fortune. You glance again at the few objects in the room. Nothing of value in the worldly sense. A cracked clay bowl, a thin robe, a shelf with just 2 scrolls. You imagine modern minds scoffing at such sparseness. But to Epictetus, it was abundance. Nothing weighed him down. He was free. Outside, you hear a vendor's cart in the far-off street, wooden wheels creaking against stone. But inside, the silence is uninterrupted. Epictetus is writing now. Not hurriedly, but steadily. Perhaps composing a new lecture. Or maybe jotting a note to himself, a reminder to remain composed during the midday meal if the bread is stale or the soup thin. Scholars still question how much of what survives was his direct thought, and how much was Arrian's framing. Did Epictetus speak exactly as recorded? Were some words softened, reshaped? No one knows. But it hardly matters, because the heart of the message remains clarity, responsibility, serenity in the face of life's shifting winds. You close your eyes and let those winds pass through you, leaving only stillness in their wake. Nothing belongs to you except your reasoned response. And tonight, that truth is not a burden, but a balm. You reach for the scroll nearest your mat, not to read, but to feel. The papyrus is rough beneath your fingertips, its edges curled with age. You imagine Epictetus copying down a lesson by oil lamp, pausing not for perfection, but for clarity. He believed words mattered only if they moved the soul. And so the pages carry no flourish, only instruction. His voice lingers in memory. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. There's a quiet demand there, a call not to dream vaguely but to define, to choose your shape before life molds you at random. Most people, he would say, spend their days reacting, pushed and pulled by impulse, emotion, gossip, fortune. But the Stoic sets direction before the wind picks up. And when the wind changes, the course may shift, but the compass does not. You sit straighter now, echoing the intent behind that thought. What would you be, not in titles or achievements, but in nature, in the fiber of your character? Patient, brave, generous. If yes, then your daily ritual is not performance, but practice. Outside, the air grows warmer. Golden light trickles across the floor. A bird sings from a rooftop, but your attention stays inward, anchored to a discipline that feels ancient and oddly urgent. Epictetus often criticized those who studied philosophy the way others study theater, impressed by the sounds but unmoved in behavior. Don't talk about your philosophy, he warned. Embody it. And so you see it now, not just as words on scrolls, but in the soft firmness of how he sits, how he holds his breath between thoughts, how he reaches for his cane without bitterness. Even in stillness, he acts. Philosophers still ask, can anyone truly live this way? Can a person sustain detachment from things so deeply woven into human emotion, reputation, comfort, success? The answers vary. But this much is true. Epictetus tried. every day. And that effort, not the result, is what truly belonged to him. The light has now crept further into the room, casting slender shadows that shift gently across the wall. You follow one with your gaze slow, deliberate, like watching time exhale. There is no need to rush this morning. Epictetus wouldn't have. The day does not command you. It invites you. You rise carefully, mirroring the kind of reverence he had for small movements. His teaching rings quietly in your memory. When you are about to put your hand to any action, remind yourself what kind of action it is. Not in the grandiose, but in the mundane. Even washing one's face becomes a sacred moment of presence. In the corner of the room, a simple basin holds cold water. No steam, no perfume, no ritual beyond the act itself. Epictetus might have dipped a cloth in and pressed it slowly against his face, not for comfort, but for clarity. To remind himself that nature asks little, only cooperation, not indulgence. You lean forward slightly, as if you too were reaching into that cold water. Not flinching, not resisting, just receiving. This moment belongs to you, not the temperature, not the texture, but your willingness to meet it without recoil. A low sound hums from outside, perhaps a street vendor, perhaps a donkey's bray. The world is waking, but inside this stillness is yours. The kind of stillness Epictetus believed was the root of strength. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That quote echoes now like a whisper inside the stone walls. Not because it's cruel, but because it's freeing. You realize how often the noise of the world rises from our attempts to look composed, to appear wise. The Stoics' Epictetus, most of all, sought the opposite, to be true first, and praised later, if at all. Scholars still debate whether he was too rigid, too dismissive of joy, too strict in his framing of control. But even those critics agree there's something disarming about how little he needed, how calm he remained in the face of storms others manufactured for themselves. And so you kneel gently beside that imagined basin. Not because it's required, but because you ease back onto the mat, letting your breath settle into a quieter rhythm. Your knees brush the woven fibers, and your fingertips rest on your thighs, still but alert. This is the part of the day Epictetus might have called the first test, not of endurance, but of direction. He believed that the greatest power we possess is our ability to choose how we respond. It's not things that disturb us, he said, but our opinions about them. And so the true challenge was never the day ahead, it was the mindset with which you meet it. The room is still. Outside, the shadows of fig leaves sway slightly on the stone path. You picture Epictetus sitting like this long ago in a room not unlike this one. No attendants, no distractions. Just the silence between thoughts and the courage to examine them. In that silence, he might ask himself, what do I truly control today? Not the weather, not the behavior of others, not the rumors in the forum or the price of grain, but this breath, this focus, this reaction. These are mine, and they are enough. You close your eyes now, not to sleep, but to listen. Your body sinks into the mat. There is nothing urgent, nothing to chase. This is the paradox of Stoic clarity. The more you release what isn't yours, the more powerful you feel. You remember his teaching on insults, how Epictetus encouraged students to imagine being mocked and to feel nothing stir. Shall the man who is flayed be angry with the instrument, he asked, and you begin to see what he meant. Anger is not a defense, it's an admission of attachment. Some scholars question this. They ask if such detachment dulls the richness of human experience, if a life without reaction is a life half-lived. But even in debate, most agree Epictetus wasn't numb, he was anchored. And that's different. You breathe in deeply, letting the still air pass through your chest. That breath belongs to you. So does the pause that follows it. The worries you've carried, the fears that knock loudly when the world quiets down, they might visit, but they don't own you. Not unless you invite them in. And that's the lesson etched in your bones. Now freedom is not escape. It's knowing what cannot be taken from you. You rise slowly, feeling the stiffness in your joints, not unwelcome, just another part of being alive. The light from the window is a bit stronger now, turning the edges of the room golden. Dust floats gently in the air, like slow falling snow. You stretch a little, not for performance, but for presence. Epictetus taught that the body is not to be worshipped nor ignored. It is a vessel, not a master. He limped, remember, not out of pride or shame, but simply because that was the leg he had. He once said, "I must die." But must I die groaning? And in that simple phrase, you feel the soul of his daily discipline. You walk to the clay bowl near the corner, fill it with a little water from the jug, and rinse your hands and face. The water is cold but clean, sharp but invigorating. This is not a ritual for show. It is not mystical or magical. It is practical and dignified. As the water drips from your fingertips, you recall another of his sayings. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. It sounds obvious, even simple. But how many people do the opposite, doing first, hoping their identity will catch up later? Scholars still debate how much of Stoicism was influenced by earlier Socratic thought, and how much was uniquely Roman in flavor. Did Epictetus truly live every lesson he taught, or did Arian embellish? But the details don't distract you. The essence is clear. Clarity begins in habit, and habit begins in choice. You towel off with a small linen cloth coarsely woven. It smells of the sun. And as you return to your place by the shelf, you notice the scroll you hadn't seen before. It's blank, waiting. That too is part of the discipline reflection that isn't reactive but creative. The day ahead isn't an obligation, it's an invitation. You take a seat again. The world still waits. But it can wait a little longer. For now you belong only to this breath, this thought, this practice. The room has warmed now, not with fire but with time. Morning's hush lingers, but you feel it shifting subtly like a tide preparing to recede. Still, Epictetus has not hurried, and neither do you. The world beyond this small space, the Senate, the markets, the gossip, can wait. This hour belongs to discipline. On the shelf rests a small wooden tablet worn smooth at the corners. You run your fingers along its surface and find a phrase etched there in careful hand. Some things are up to us, some are not. It's a cornerstone of his thought, simple yet seismic. What would it mean truly to accept that most of what you worry about is not yours to control the weather? Other people, the past, the future, fame, even health. So much that seems central to your life is in fact not in your hands. Epictetus might ask you if a bird can accept the wind and a tree the drought. Why do you wrestle with fate as if you could out-argue the cosmos? You think of his own life, enslaved, injured, dismissed by many. And yet he did not rage. He observed. He refined his judgments until only what mattered remained: his mind, his choices, his virtue. It's not things themselves that disturb us, he said, but our opinions about them. And here lies the daily work, not in lifting burdens, but in shifting perception. You recall yesterday's frustration, perhaps a missed opportunity, an unkind word. You hold it up now like a fragment of pottery in morning light. It's smaller than it felt. Scholars still ask, was this passivity, was it escape disguised as philosophy? But Epictetus would argue the opposite. It was confrontation of the most difficult kind. Not with armies or enemies, but with your own attachments. You place the tablet back on the shelf gently. Its wisdom remains without needing to be displayed. And as you close your eyes for a breath, the difference between resistance and resilience begins to reveal itself. Not in grand acts, but in steady presence. In the quiet skill of knowing what truly belongs to you. You hear the faint rustle of his robe as Epictetus moves across the room again. He limps lightly, his gait shaped by the injury that never quite healed. Some say it was inflicted during his time in bondage, a punishment left unspoken. Others suggest it was simply misfortune, no cruelty behind it. But Epictetus never offered bitterness either way. That too was outside his control. He once told his students, "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to. Instead, want them to happen as they do, and your life will go well." You sit with that a moment. It's not just acceptance, it's alignment. Letting your inner rhythm move with the unfolding of the world rather than against it. It doesn't mean you don't act. It means you act only where your reach extends within. Epictetus kneels slowly beside the basin of cool water once more. Not out of vanity, not ritual for ritual's sake. Simply habit care. A body tended, not pampered. His breath is measured, his mind untroubled. He dips a cloth and wipes his hands. You do the same. In this simplicity, there's a hidden richness. This is not a man escaping the world. This is someone engaging with it precisely as it is, through discipline, through humility, through presence. You wonder how many nights he slept on that same thin mat. How many mornings began not with ambition, but with the quiet act of returning to his principles. Of recommitting to the thought, you control how you meet the day, not what the day brings. Some scholars argue that such detachment leaves little room for passion or change. But Epictetus never denied emotion, only its dominance. He did not fear sadness or fatigue or pain. He simply reminded you they are not you. They visit, they pass. The candle flickers once more. A breeze through the window cools the air. You feel a similar breeze move through your thoughts, clearing, not unsettling. For now, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. In this quiet, shared moment with a philosopher long gone, yet somehow present in the discipline of your attention. The quiet lingers like a companion. You haven't moved much, neither has Epictetus. And yet so much within you has shifted. There's a grounding in watching someone live with such simplicity, such precision. Not in motion, but in mindset. He once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." You let that settle. It's not a quote meant to belittle, it's a challenge. A permission slip to let go of image of pride, of the heavy cloak of appearance. What belongs to you is your willingness to stay true even when misunderstood. You think of the many masks we wear in the modern world. Social performance, constant explanation, posturing. But here there is no audience, no need to be impressive, only to be honest. You are not here to impress. You are here to remember who you are. Epictetus sits now near the low shelf where the tablet rests. The phrase carved into it catches golden light. Some things are up to us, some things are not. You imagine his finger tracing that phrase again and again, not because he forgot, but because remembering is a daily task. Some scholars wonder if this radical divide between inner and outer control oversimplifies human experience. Can emotions be neatly split off? Is the world so binary? But perhaps that's missing the point. Stoicism at its heart isn't about hard lines. It's about freedom, inner steadiness, mental sovereignty. You observe Epictetus as he folds one of the scrolls, tying it with a thin strip of twine. He doesn't check it twice. He doesn't doubt. He does what is his to do and lets go of what isn't. That's your lesson too. Let go of the thought that you must always understand, or be seen, or be in control. What truly belongs to you, your mind, your intention, your effort, is already enough. The candle has burned low now, and yet nothing feels diminished, not even the light. You sit quietly as the light softens, breathing in the stillness that now feels earned. Not demanded, not granted, simply present like the floor beneath your feet. Your thoughts no longer race to what must be done or what should have happened. Instead, you find yourself here fully. Epictetus, too, remains still. He gazes out the small window, not waiting for anything, not lost in fantasy. Just observing the way the breeze moves the olive leaves, the way the world continues, whether or not you rush to meet it. We are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. And in that sentence, an entire day reshapes itself. You think of the last time you were overwhelmed by an obligation, a comment, a turn of events. The event itself was never yours to control. But your judgment, that was always yours, still is. Even now, sitting beside this imagined philosopher in a quiet Roman room, that truth remains. Historians sometimes critique Epictetus for being too detached, too idealistic in the face of real hardship. But perhaps the detachment isn't indifference, it's care sharpened and made wise. He didn't teach apathy, he taught discernment. Not to feel less, but to waste less. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in slowly. The clay walls smell faintly of dust and oil. The small cracks in the plaster form shapes you can't quite name. None of it perfect, all of it enough. Epictetus rises once more. This time there is no ceremony. He simply stands, adjusts his tunic, and places the tied scroll gently back on the shelf. The gesture is unremarkable. And yet in its simplicity, you understand this too is a kind of strength. The strength to close the book. To trust the lesson has been learned. To carry forward gently. The day leans toward light now. Not in haste, but in gentle unfolding like parchment unrolling in the sun. You're still seated, still grounded, but a shift is happening. Not outside, but within. Epictetus doesn't chase it. He greets it. That is the way of his discipline. Not to command the dawn, but to rise in harmony with it. You reflect on his most repeated reminder, don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather wish that what happens happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy. You might blink at first. How could one want less? Shouldn't we aim higher, push forward? But what he's offering isn't passivity, it's alignment. The difference between crashing against the current and learning how to swim with it, to read the river, to conserve your strength, for where it counts your character, your clarity, your response. He folds a linen cloth with practiced ease. Nothing special, nothing rushed. You wonder how many times he's done it, how little thought it requires. Yet that is the point, training the mind through repetition. Not grand gestures, but daily rituals that sculpt the soul like a chisel shapes stone. Philosophers still debate whether this Stoic discipline strips life of its spontaneity. But maybe it simply clears the noise so you can actually hear what matters. So that when chaos knocks, you know what to protect and what to release. You rise now quietly, not to interrupt, but to mirror his calm. The mat beneath you leaves gentle impressions on your skin. Even this Epictetus might say is useful sensation, reminding you that your body is not an enemy, only a vessel. A tool for practice. The candle has finally gone out. Yet the room is not dark. It's filled with the steady kind of light that doesn't need flame to be known. You remain still, but something in you has shifted less like a decision, more like a quiet unfolding. The lesson has not been shouted, not even spoken directly. But it has settled into you like dust settling into the grooves of carved stone. Epictetus stands beside the shelf again. His hand brushes the wooden edge worn smooth by years of morning rituals and midnight thoughts. No applause waits for him, no audience. But his life, this ordinary, unembellished pattern of presence, has outlived empires, outlasted palaces, and somehow reached you here in this quiet moment. You recall another of his teachings. You may fetter my leg, but my will not even Zeus himself can overpower. That is the core of what you've witnessed tonight. Not a philosophy of cold detachment, but one of inner liberation. The idea that what is truly yours, your thoughts, your responses, your character, can never be taken unless you offer them freely. The wind outside stirs again. Somewhere a rooster calls softly. The room hasn't changed, and yet everything feels different. You begin to understand you are not powerless even when the world overwhelms. You are not helpless even in silence. What belongs to you, the moment, your choice within it, the breath you take, and what you do with it. Scholars still question whether Epictetus was ever truly free, a man once enslaved and later revered. But maybe that's the final paradox. The body may have chains, but the mind, when disciplined, walks wherever it pleases. You step to the door now, slowly. The world waits beyond it, not softer, not easier. But you're different, calmer, wiser. Not because you conquered the storm, but because you stopped mistaking it for something personal. And as you look once more into that humble room, you carry this with you. Some things are up to us. Some things are not.